Good evening once again. We are back with another episode of the show.
Close the heads.
The show. And today we are discussing a contentious topic: Uganda's opposition to the regime. Uganda's opposition to the regime. First off, introduce yourselves.
Mugisha.
Mukitale Frank.
As we've said, the topic is Uganda's opposition. We have to start off with the obvious questions. Dean. Sorry, Nkoba Mugisha.
Decolonize.
No, I'm sorry and ashamed.
I'm neither white nor Christian.
Nkoba Mugisha. What, when you look at the opposition, who is your front runner?
So, I feel like this is a strange question.
In the front runner?
No, it's not a strange question. I feel like it's an improper question.
How?
It's the wrong question.
How?
What
No,
are
I
they-
first want your opinion. Yeah, I want your personal opinion.
Before
People have all these scientific models and
It's not a scientific.
political. No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying people have all these models, and he can tell you, me, my front runner is this one because this. So that's why I first have to ask. It may look basic or improper, but I have to first confirm. I might make assumptions later on.
Alright, so can I first talk about why my views on opposition in general before I give the answer? Or I first give the answer and then I drive it.
I think first give the answer first of all.
So my answer, can I pick two? I can take one.
I think a front runner because you can't pick two presidents, so you have to pick one.
Okay, allow me to sort of, explain my own take. So my front runner would be someone who has Bobi Wine Chagulani's air around him, that ability to pull the wretched of the earth that compose Uganda behind him, but at the same time who has the leadership capabilities of Mugisha Muntu.
I see.
Because the two need to go hand in hand. So you need a sort of Che Guevara or Fidel Castro figure. And this was what I was trying to say at the beginning. When you talk about Uganda's opposition, who are they opposing? Why are
The
they
regime,
opposing?
the incumbent.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's just a matter of we don't like this regime because it has been around for a while, therefore we need another regime.
I think we can get into the what? The semantics of why they are opposing, but now we are here. It's too late. They are nominated, so we have to go with what's there. That's why I asked. So let's first, because elections are on the corner.
my choice would be a candidate. I would preferably throw my lot behind Mugisha Muntu. But it does not have the Bobi Wine factor.
So you're saying Bobi Wine is the front runner, according to your opinion. I'm not saying who you support.
Oh, okay.
I haven't asked who you support. I said, who do you think is the front runner? That's what I said.
That's hands down Chagulani.
Do you feel the same?
No. I like actually the way he carried the conversation because I think it reflects how in a way for most Ugandans there is not, for many, let me not say most, for many Ugandans there isn't an adequate candidate which is like all the boxes. There was someone who told me if only Chagulani and Muntu were in a partnership, you get it would make more sense, mostly because one has sway in the army, one has sway of the people. But I think for me, my front runner, I don't have one actually.
But who do you think would be the face of Uganda's opposition in this particular election?
The face of Uganda's opposition is definitely Chagulani.
This particular election cycle?
It's definitely Chagulani, but of course, for my own reasons, I am not for any of those people.
What are those reasons?
I do not think a change of leadership will change anything. And honestly, Uganda's election campaigns have become a popularity contest. That is why you will find that Bobi Wine is able to pull all those people, mostly because he is preaching a message of we are tired of the current regime. But is tiredness of the current regime going to fix any problems, any issues that Uganda has?
No, but again, and this is the Bobi Wine factor. The way I see it, yeah. There's this character in American Gods, and I like the way they adopted him from the book to the series. Anansi.
Yes.
That's his name. Is called Big Nose Guy. He was even in Sleepy Hollow. I've forgotten his name. Who's that?
The actor's name.
Yeah, the guy that plays Anansi in American Gods. But he said, like, listen, it's one of his opening speeches is hungry gets shit done.
Anger gets
Shit done. Because the truth of the matter is, I feel like Ugandans are not hungry. They're not complacent. If you travel anywhere in East Africa, outside Uganda, everyone looks at us as a joke. Like you go to Tanzania and guys are like, oh, you're Ugandan. It's a joke. Like we are the laughing stock of the entire East African region. You go to Kenya, you're like, God damn. Like,
Kenyans really have us.
Like, how are you guys alive? Like, how are you a whole country? Even Rwanda has no reason to laugh at us. It's like, come on, you're bloody. You're not even a sub county. Physically, you're like Kampala at most. You know, Rwanda's total population comes to around 11 million. That's Kampala on a bad day with jam. Like, let's be serious about this. But by the time they think that we are disorganized, all right, like, yo, you guys get your shit in order, and I feel like that is the issue. So, yes, being tired of some things may not get shit done, but it's the starting point, because you can never want to see things better. If it doesn't piss you off on a certain level, like, you know what, I feel like, because I remember, so this is a very small incident, but it shows, it has haunted me to death. So we're in Kigali, and we were crossing the road. And so as we crossed the road, it was at a zebra crossing. So as we crossed the road, we see a border coming. Now us as Kampala, you know that when you see a border coming, it's time to either go back or become acrobatic in this metric sheet of bending yourself not to get hit down. So then the border is coming, and then we start running across the road. I think we're a group of 4 guys. So 2 of us sprint in front, the other 2 didn't take a step back. And the border stops at the zebra crossing and looks at us, and all the other cars stop and look at us. And now so we sort of pause, because we're like, this is like, okay. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you running? Where are you running? One group is going here, the other, are you thieves? Like, what is happening? We're like, yo, we saw a border coming. And the border guy is judging us in Swahili, and my shady Swahili was also. He's like, yeah, but I saw you guys crossing at a zebra crossing. Of course, I have to stop. Like, like, okay. And then there's a motorist next to him that said, those guys must be Ugandan.
And he was right.
And she was right. And I feel like it's these small things. True.
But where I come from, you see, yes, I understand the anger. Yes, anger gets shit done, but anger also leaves a bad taste in the mouth. True.
Yeah,
you understand?
It creates
so, anger, yes, is the easiest fuel. And I say it is the easiest, because you get passionate real quick, and you're like, we need to do something about this. But sometimes you have to remember that you cannot plant hate and receive love.
No.
Hate breeds hate.
Please don't confuse anger and hate. Those are 2 different emotions. You can hold on. You can slap me right now. Alright? I would be angry at you. I would not hate you.
Oh yeah, yes.
I would be angry at you.
Yes.
Because why the fuck have you slapped me? And so fuck you, and I'll punch you in the face. Okay? However, if you're to do something outrageous, like say cut off my hand, or slaughter someone close to me, I would hate you.
But still stands, anger breeds anger.
Yeah, especially in mobs. In mobs, anger usually results in hate. In mobs.
Exactly.
And hate doesn't have to be rational. The funny thing about hate is it doesn't have to be rational.
But you see,
if we are in the thing, as the popular saying is, if we are in the thing and you guys organize and remove us, I don't have to rationally say, no, I was corrupt. These guys, what they did is correct. I will hate.
Yeah, but you see, this is the same logic that the current sitting government used to overthrow the Obotes. People were angry. I mean, if I wake up one morning and State Research Bureau is knocking on my door, it has dropped.
So you're meaning this current government?
Yes, this current sitting
But
government.
how is
It's the same thing.
That's what I'm saying.
But see, and this is what, no, let me drive my point home. So for the first 5-10 years, all right, after they just taken power, there was a window there where everyone is angry, but everyone is willing to sort of work through. Reconcile. Yeah, but reconcile is a strong word, but sort of walk through their feelings of, this happened, this went down, but let's restart the chapter. So at a certain basic level, yes, anger can be managed. On a larger societal level, you can, with the right tools in place or with the right sentiment or with a charismatic enough leader, anger can be managed. Social anger can be managed. That's why you need someone with Bobby Wine's charisma and ability to tap into all that thing and Muntu tools of managing people. That would be the perfect combination. But if you set Bobby Wine on that path alone, if he wins, it's just going to be pure, like you've said, unbridled anger.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of shit that has happened. And if you set Muntu on that path alone, if he wins, he's going to be just too organized for him to actually deal with the underlying emotional issues. He will just manage them to deliver results. But the actual underlying emotional baggage that the nation carries would not be adequately resolved.
Justified.
No, it will not be resolved. It will be waiting for someone else to come along and sort of figure that out. That is the whole, my take on that particular setup.
Also, in general, first of all, like, this is what scares me. Since the last election, those are 2 election cycles, right?
How many years was 2016?
Okay, but I'm saying even before that, those are 10 years, right? We've been hearing a joint candidate till today. Till today, people have failed to deliver a joint candidate, and coming into these elections, the forerunners of the opposition is always known. Are these people just too disorganized? Are some of them moles? Is it plain ego?
Let me still try and drive my point home from your angle. I think there are egos there. Number one, there are some very big egos there. I don't think Bobby Wine would want to work with Muntu. First of all, Muntu has worked with Museveni before. There would just be too much distrust. Also, I think these people have sponsors we don't know about, and their sponsors' interests may not match.
Pepsi is supporting you, Coca-Cola is supporting you. You should not present a joint product.
So how are we going to form a joint alliance between opposition when the opposition's ability to carry out its campaign is not coming from the people who want the change? It's actually coming from whatever multinational or whatever foreign entity is funding the process. That being said, Uganda, I feel, for me the way I feel, is that campaigns happen, but there's a lot going on we don't. There's too much, there are too many agendas going on that the people who are supposed to vote don't know about. So a scenario whereby you see the news and they're saying, police tear gas people like this. The opposition almost seems blameless. Let's say in the case it is Noop.
True.
It is Noop that was organizing a rally and the police oppressed that.
Yeah.
But if you're on ground in such rallies, you will actually realize that there are people who are pretending to be Noop supporters that are causing havoc.
Yeah.
They are putting roadblocks. They are saying if you want to pass 1K.
Yes.
If you don't, they actually malice you.
Exactly.
Sing 5 Bobby Wine songs. So what am I trying to say? Clearly, there's a problem in Uganda, right?
Yeah.
The issue is everyone wants to point fingers.
True.
But there can't be a problem and it's one-sided. So that means the leaders have a problem, but the people also have a what? The people also have a problem. So the thing with election campaigns is that we get the chance not to blame ourselves for our own problems. We'll be like, that leader has been so fake, that's why I'm suffering in life, right?
True.
But let's say somehow Chagulani, Muntu, Calculator, somehow they win. Will the core issues of Uganda go away?
No.
The core issues will not actually go away.
True.
So you find people who want to be popular opposition candidates, Bobby Wine, have to take the route of agitation.
Yeah.
Because that is the reflection. It's actually a reflection of the people's mindsets. The people are actually not really interested in a real change. They are just looking for, what should I call it?
Hope.
Not even hope. Retribution. No, it's like they want to be paid back. They feel like they are suffered and they want someone to pay for that suffering, right? But remember, a problem can't be there and you're not part of it. Also, us on some level, there's somewhere where we failed.
Yes.
So, the popular candidates will take that route to give people the emotional validation they need.
Yes.
But you will find that the opposition members who are actually speaking about policy change that will actually help, they are the least popular. That's why you will never hear about Kabuleta's campaign anywhere. The man is actually jazzing sex. But no one is following that because no one actually wants that.
Look at the last election cycle. Did you hear the late this one of the Farmers Party, Biraro?
I heard him on the presidential debate. Like he knew what he
was talking about. You understand? But still, like people didn't.
You understand?
People found him boring.
Exactly.
People found him. I don't know.
Exactly.
I thought,
Well, I feel like Uganda as a nation has suffered from a political stillbirth. Because if you look at Kenya, so okay, African countries were born out of violence. The countries we call African states today were just created out of pure violence. And so the only way that Fanon's theory of violence, the only way that you can reclaim your identity within this violent construct is to also unleash your own violence against the proponents of this whole structure. So you have in Kenya the Mau Mau going against the British. So now everyone in Kenya has that thing of, listen, if we want the country to move XYZ, we have to be willing to shed our blood to get this done. So it goes, the same applies to Tanzania, like they had wars for independence and shit. And so the Maji. So the whole body politic of the country is now founded on, we're willing to do it to go the distance. Uganda did not have that.
But we paid for it.
No, hold on. No, but see, now that's the issue. Because when guys in the NRO tell you that, have you ever had that statement of, when we were in the bush, where were you? It's not rhetoric. Because the actual percentage of the country that was engaged in this war, life was going on as usual for the larger part of the country.
Yes.
There were chief justices and the country was running. It was like how we experienced the Kwani War. Guys were being slaughtered up those ends. But us down here, it's all good, like the country. So the whole idea of a collective violent episode to galvanize the country into saying, oh fuck, we have to fight for this, our country, has never actually come up in Uganda's body politic. And it is because of this reason that I feel like guys cannot envisage putting aside their differences and working together to achieve one common political
opposition.
Because we have never been forced into that sort of position before. And it has never come about. So even right now, if
I think you have a point, and I'm just adding to it. Also, there's every movement has its, be it social, be it a political party, be it a football club, be it anything, be it a religion. There are always the moderates and there are always the radicals. But if you notice, many movements are at what? The mercy of these radicals. Because the people at the top feel this people will mount a what? A coup against me if I show that I'm, So I feel some of these leaders, the way they talk, they are open But there are those people who tell you, I've been in this party since, for you, where were you? You understand? And they say, you'll kill our identity. We have to, front a candidate on the ballot paper. We fronted the candidate on the ballot paper since 19, this. We cannot. Who is this boy? Do we know? You understand? So there are so many you saw when Munt was in FDC, how they were hounding him out. You understand? The people hounding him out were not top level people. Actually, no one ever saw a press conference where they're hounding him out. But he kept on complaining every day.
Yeah, no, it's like I saying in this budget book, it's our time to eat. So the problem, one of the biggest problems Uganda has had with especially identity and tribes is everyone who takes charge of the state looks at it as a feeding trough, and it's once I am in charge, okay, my family, my clan, my tribe, etc. It is our time to eat from the state until you guys can get us off. So if you look at other countries within East Africa, yes, they suffer from the same problem, but to a much smaller extent, because they have learned. So like in Tanzania, they have learned how to make the presidency work for everyone. In Kenya, they failed at that, but they succeeded in making sure that every major tribe takes a turn at the presidential trough. So if it's the Kikuyus this year, next year it's the Luo, like there's a whole cycle. It's a revolving door, so that everyone feels like, okay, fair enough, this works for us. But in Uganda, we're stuck in this thing of let them eat. We'll wait when that time is over.
And now, winner takes all. Winner takes all creates a gambling mentality. It creates a gambling mentality of I'm willing to risk it all. I'm willing to risk it all.
This is the fear I'm trying to point out. That when Bobby comes and does these revolutionary things, I'm using him as a. I'm not saying like saying him. I'm saying like how the archetype of opposition members that tend to come in Uganda, the strong ones. They come and they're like, oh, these guys have messed up. Oh, these guys are not doing it right. These guys are being greedy. But this is the same spirit Museveni came in by the way. You understand? Yeah. And he actually ended up becoming the very same thing. He fought, he swore to fight. So I fear these guys are just falling for the same old thing. They are, in a way, they're not so honest with themselves because they don't know how deep the problem in Uganda is. There are many entities involved here.
I feel like no one is ever honest about their chances.
So he comes and he's like, oh, this guy has been in so much power. These guys are so greedy. But the same people say that only a thief has a problem with another thief. You get, so I feel like that's a unique situation we have in Uganda. These opposition members are also just other what? There are also other shady members that they're putting up a what?
They're shady.
But there's a school of thought that brings a thingy to that. It says that, you see in Kenya, there are people whose family name, the moment they tell you this one is called this, you know he's wealthy. Because their wealth is almost like Russian oligarchs. You understand? And so there was a view of that. If you allow things to change, you prevent an oligarch type structure from cropping up and setting up itself in what? In the society. And so far,
Uganda doesn't have oligarchs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So far we've what? We've
feel
kept
like,
it at a normal distance, but a more continued rule. And
I feel like the only reason Uganda doesn't have oligarchs, and even if all the plans of succession and blah 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 according to rumors come to pass, Uganda will not have oligarchs. Why? Not for lack of trying, but simply because we even that we cannot manage it. This is my sincere opinion.
We have one oligarch in Uganda.
Who?
Mr. Sam Kutesa is an oligarch.
Fair enough, but he's an exception.
He learns.
He's an exception to the general rule.
Others are like, you see, capitalism evolves like that. They see what is most efficient. You saw how every company learned that, if you register your company in Mauritius or wherever those countries are, you can actually avoid taxes. Now, every company these days, yes, MTN, Apple, all of them.
Okay,
name it.
But here's what I was saying. So, yes, on the one hand, he's correct. Like, we have a bunch of shady guys in opposition that are just lying and also thugs. But then there's also this argument that everyone speaks because no one is 110% certain of their chances and is on some level just selling their ambitions short. All right. So some Uganda can stand up and say Saleh is a thief, XYZ, blah blah blah, point out all his flaws. But some Uganda does that because in the back of his on some subconscious level, it's like I'll never be the next Saleh. All right. So it's you can run your mouth, like we can say, oh, you know, Apple is bad, social dilemma, blah blah blah. These big companies are bad, and make that noise. But what if you wake up one day and you're the next Apple?
Yes.
Are you saying that is the problem?
That's actually
so now the problem is the arguments you made when you thought I could not be the next Apple, and now you're there. You're not even the next Apple. You're now actually Apple as Apple. You sort of realize that you had not prepared your mind. You're not contextualized. Okay, I'm whining about Apple because of what it's doing now. If I am Apple, all right, what would I do differently? You've not contextualized. True. So now you find yourself in this dilemma of, fuck, I am the guy. And now you find yourself facing the same challenges that these guys face. And because you've not yet prepared yourself for that sort of, what would I do if, you're going to fall back on the same patterns, behaviors, and mechanisms that Apple used to become Apple. And so the saying of, either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain comes into play at that point. Because you lied to yourself, like, yeah, we can do it, but they're like, no, fuck it, we can't do this shit on a subconscious level.
True. I agree with that.
So, I think in a way, because things have gotten so unclear with who has the actual intentions to serve Ugandan people. There are too many.
But the Ugandan people need serving.
They do because
from who? Okay, fair enough.
Hear
me out. We have agreed, right? Ugandan people need serving.
Yes.
From whom?
Okay, now me
themselves.
Exactly. So do you agree that
themselves and other
yes, of
okay,
course.
fine. So fair
course,
enough.
themselves.
The very first thing is they agree that one, Ugandan people need saving.
Yes.
And two, on a certain level, Ugandan people need saving from themselves. Here, this is my third question. How would you save someone from themselves?
That's
allow me
to walk you through that. Allow me to walk you through that. The people have to realize that the belief we create in these opposition leaders is we are taking the easy route. We think the change of leadership is going to change. It won't change anything as long as our mindsets are still the same. You get it? So in summary, what I'm saying, Uganda's opposition to the regime, as per the premise of this session, it's just a popularity contest. Because the real opposition has to be the people themselves. People have to realize, first of all, we have to change the way we are doing things. That's number one. No one is going to come. There's no leader who's actually going to come from somewhere and save all of you in the whole community.
But have you heard of the story
from whatever you're going?
Have you heard of the story of one Bwana Yesu? Hallelujah.
Who's this one? Yes. All I know, a big percentage of the Ugandans themselves have to realize that they have to do the work. As themselves. That's number one. Number two, the enemies, yes, there's Ugandans themselves. But because of Uganda, like you mentioned earlier, the things like strategic things like the source of the river Nile, there are entities in here. Let's not pretend like they are not here controlling our resources. Who owns most of the mines in Uganda, if not the British government? If don't the French smuggle their gold, which they steal from Congo, through Uganda? Who's setting up camp in Karamoja? Not the Italians and the Israelites. You get this is what I'm saying. So let's not even look at them as enemies. Let's just look at them as people who have found a way to utilize what we have better than us. Now it's fair, it's a free world, but it can't continue like that because you people have been living there for a long time. So Ugandans have the people as a big mass have to become the real opposition. How? We have to lose faith in this nonsense, this popularity contest they give us every 5 years.
Selling dreams.
That's number one. We have to lose faith in that thing because it really doesn't change anything for us.
Just people's skin dying.
But it shocks me that
But,
since 1962 to date, this is a very popular mechanism.
It's what we have.
They are pushing it.
Didn't you say you
Mkoba.
referenced Mkoba Gisha? You referenced it's our turn to eat. In the introduction of that book, the journalist who wrote it, Michelle Arom, is at a rally of Kibaki. It's the end of the Moi era. So they're finished. Kibaki has finished addressing, and the rally is ended. So somehow she drops her bag, and it's a hassle. People are going. You've seen the environment of rallies. So a man comes running and gives it to her. She's like, "Wow, I thought they would steal it." She's like, "No, madam. Those were Moi's days. This is a new era."
In Uganda one time.
Exactly. So, saving you from yourself might be a thing of, as you said, mindset. And if people, by the way, mindset are things of what? Usually are things of small things like tokenism, symbolism, using a few people as examples.
And that's the thing.
In the coach of Portugal, the Portuguese national team, Fernando Santos, you know, like he's a very boring looking man. If you would pass him on the street, like he's very boring. But I was reading about him recently. He got a job before he went back to Portugal. He got a job with the Greek national team. So he enters the team meeting. These guys also have never heard of him. They're seeing this old man wearing a very dull suit. So he tells them, these are big stars, all of them, very big stars. Tells them, I'm your new coach, this, we're going to train for these months, this is going to be our session, and we shall be here by 7 a.m. They look at each other and laugh. Tell him, no, can't come here by 7 a.m. There's traffic. Tells them, okay, it's now at 6 a.m. So, it's such things. And the Greek team performed beyond their expectations when he was still their coach. You understand? But this was a guy who was unknown to them. No one knew him. You understand? So, we don't make it seem like it's impossible to save someone from themselves.
I'm not saying it's impossible, because it's a thought experiment I have tried out during COVID, changing a mindset. And it takes, guidance, dedication. I don't know of anyone that can pull it off on a national scale.
It can be done.
No, I'm not. Hold on.
Facilitates it.
Yes. I'm not saying it cannot be done. Yes, hear me out. It can be done.
Yes.
I just don't know of anyone in Uganda right now at this moment who can push it off, who can pull it off. And like you were saying,
yeah,
like you've just said, mindset changes are small things, and it's what I tweeted yesterday. And okay, so but fuck it. Why I disagree with the slogan "securing your future." Listen, you don't need 5 years to secure your future. That is a lie. You need 90 days to secure your future. Strictly 90. Because in the first 30 days, you're breaking a bad habit. In the next 30 days, you're forming a new habit. All right? And in the last 30 days, that new habit is now part of you. That is basically it. So you get a new ideology, blah, blah, blah. You implement the habits of it. So you spend the first 30 days breaking an old habit. Next 30, 90 days. All right? So, and this goes back to what you said. So if Ugandans, there is a segment of Ugandans that is deeply invested in this thing of building infrastructure, etc. Is how we secure our future. Like my nigga, it takes 90 days. If you cannot save yourself in 90 days, just die. After all, we're all dying. And then there's another group of Uganda that sincerely believes in their heart of hearts that also then their candidate needs another 5 years to undo this damage, and like across the board, no matter which side of the political divide you're sitting on, it takes 90 days to achieve this shit.
Again, let me use your point against you. You said at a national scale. You understand? You're using personal level. National level,
but the nation
it takes time. Even
no,
at
the nation, see, the nation is composed of individuals.
Of a club, Liverpool. It's right now a winning club. But when Klopp walked in, he told them, "Give me 4 years. If I'm not won anything in 4 years, then you'll judge me by then." And true to his point, in the 4th year they started winning. They were.
Let me put it like this.
The first 2 years.
Let me put it like this. All right.
So the 90 days.
You need 90 days.
I figure you speak.
No. Listen. You need 90 days. All right. To secure your next 5 years. Okay? So within those 90 days, all right, you've laid all the groundwork, okay, that you need to get you through the next 5 years. Okay? But after those 90 days, there's that rule of 10,000 hours in training. All right? So after the 90 days, you now have to go and put in your 10,000 hours of training. But the foundation that you actually need, the actual foundation. So there's the 90 days, then you have to put in the training, then the execution, then, bring out the fruits. Okay? All that may take a 5-year cycle. Okay?
Exactly.
But the actual foundation that led to all that does not go beyond 90 days.
I said our premise today was for focusing on the opposition. So I don't know your
what I'm saying is this. What I'm saying is this: whether you're opposition or what, okay, you're opposing this government. Fair enough, like you said. What are you bringing to the table?
Exactly.
Why am I? Listen, nowhere in Uganda's history has voting ever brought about change of government. Let us first be very honest about this. Museveni did not come through their vote. Why are you expecting him to live through the vote? In fact, if he left through the vote, he would be an abnormality in Uganda's history. Let's just be very clear about this. So if you, the one telling me I am opposed and therefore I am a Democrat and therefore this is the route we're going to take because it's the right, I'm going to tell you, you're full of shit and you're a coward. Because this does not work. We all know that it's a popularity contest. We all know that there's someone there that they're going to bribe with 5k and a pack of salt for a vote. We know this. It's not new. They are not miracles. Why the fuck are you selling me elections?
And we are blowing money on this popularity contest. You get what I'm saying?
A lot of it. I also.
You rather come tell me, you know what? First year campus, there's like a program for kids. I mean, if Innovation Village can pull it off, NTF guys can pull it off without being in government, you are the fact you first need to take control of government to pull the shit off.
Thank you. Someone who's actually interested in creating a change is not going to run a whole popularity contest. He's actually going to be doing a change.
Yeah.
He's actually going to be doing this because you don't need to go and first run for presidents to do something relevant. It means the person running for presidency, if we're just being honest with each other, even if they're being honest with themselves, that they want that power, that popularity,
legacy.
That legacy they are building exactly. The legacy is also a big part of what they want. The thing is, Uganda doesn't need that now because
on a lighter note,
we are in a situation whereby the majority of resources are not controlled, produced or distributed by people of Uganda. You get that is a crisis. I don't know what people call a crisis. I don't know if people think people being tear gassed is a crisis, but the crisis is that your next generation, this future that I tell you that you're securing, they will just be slaves of multinationals and foreign.
Have you seen Uganda's debt? But Uganda's debt to GDP ratio is close to 50%.
Hey.
Yeah, it has gotten that bad.
So you see my point. At that point, now the thing is also the regime which we are saying creating opposition has made it, and this is just my opinion. I don't want to say this as fact. Has intentionally made a big number of their people ignorant in terms of such things. You get it? So majority people will tell you we have peace. It's the most ignorant thing you can say. Mostly because you don't know your situation. Like, because you probably be telling me how you have peace.
You don't have peace.
When you're seated on a gold, there's a gold mine in your backyard. You get that an Italian is mining. But you have peace, right?
You can see.
You know what I'm saying? So what we need now is for Ugandans themselves to become the opposition to the regime that has been established for them.
Well, yeah, there's that article of Kalundi Soromaga today in the morning, where he argues that Uganda has not had peace; it has had order. And so the argument is, Uganda has had order in that the British will shut up, close one eye, and they'll send an ambassador to visit Byabakama after they have shot 50 people dead in the street. They will not do this Libya jazz of now send planes to bomb the man and uproot him. Because the truth of the matter is their interests are well taken care of.
Yes, they are assured of what they've been getting out of here. And
in
what
fact,
they're still getting.
you who goes to the street to riot and is upsetting their order are a liability to them.
Exactly.
You're a liability to their multinationals, to their profit schemes, and
I was
everything.
shocked. You did mention that. Nkova mentions that, and I'm shocked. There's a photo I saw online, and I actually thought it was Photoshop. All the ambassadors of the EU meeting Bobby Wine. I thought it was Photoshop. Yeah, there's
It's order. This people are not.
men
Listen,
meeting him
Uganda
at
has
the NUP offices.
Uganda has not had peace. Uganda has had order. State-imposed order. Order is, so peace is when your dad comes back, you look at him and tell him, man, kulika yo, and you go do your own bullshit. And you know he's not going. Okay, he will be peace, but you'll sit down, you'll eat supper together, you'll talk about it, everyone goes to sleep. That is peace. Whereby I have room to piss you off. You have room to react.
Exactly. I can express myself.
Order is when your dad walks through the gate and all of you are saluting, you're carrying his bags, removing his shoes, removing the coat, your mom is the other end with the basin of hot water.
Someone will tell you that they draw cartoons of Museveni every day. We say we're seeing opposition going on TV and criticizing.
Again, so there's a framework within which you need to play the game. So,
but that is,
and this is the difference. This is actually the key difference between capitalism and, say, the USSR. All right, the key difference is the USSR did not hide what it was. I am in charge. Fuck you.
We are the authority.
We are the authority. You want to hide? Fuck you. Capitalism does this thing of let's talk about this, and you'll come, you'll hold a conversation. The motherfucker you're talking to in his head is playing duru. Is there like Gwah!
Yes, there's an illusion of a free market.
And then after when you're done, you take pictures, shake hands, and then tell the first poison that guy, or bribe him, or just or keep him going for workshops. They will fund you for the next 20 years of your life to attend every workshop you want. They will give you an Impenkoni, they will fly you first class to the UN, they will give you titles. But what are you doing? Absolutely zero.
in conclusion, as on a lighter note, what do you people think about Katumba?
Katumba, oh yeah.
Katumba, oh yeah, that's what I think about it. But
Me, I don't know how to feel about him personally. I don't know how to feel. It feels like a form of escapism.
it is.
It feels like a
There's
form
someone who brought it out quite well. He was like, it looks like candidate John Katumba has given Ugandans who are usually on the fence a chance to comment on politics or elections safely without fear of attracting the wrath of supporters of the big boys. Yeah, it is. You see, even me, I shout Katumba Oye all the time. Me as me. But actually, it's just a reflection. It's not that I really believe that Katumba Oye makes sense. But again, I don't really have hope in Museveni. I don't really trust Bobby Wine. You get, so it's the kind of that unique situation. I mean, Muntu, yes, he's there, but I know he was Museveni's boy once. I don't see how me and Kosti could go through thick and thin and somehow we start seeing differently. Now we are real enemies. You get it?
First tree is woman. Try that route and see if it try that route and see if it doesn't work. If you're still friends after that friendship is solid.
But you get, so there's a majority of people jumping on this Katumba thing, mostly because they've lost hope.
It's the safe space.
It's
a political in-quote safe space that is not toxic.
So,
but like we said anyway, all sides, it's weird. I've not seen, and like opposition usually dominates like social media. But of late, even the incumbents, people are joining, they are creating banner accounts, they are commenting, they can come and attack you. This is the very active election.
It's active because there is money being poured into it. But in terms of discussing actual policy,
thank you.
It's empty.
Thank you. It's
very empty. It's like a hamster on a hamster wheel. So
basically, Ugandans need to be empowered to handle their own living, their own communities, right? That's but how many candidates are pushing that?
And this is how you know that Ugandans have reached a very, it's fucking depressing level. There's this thing will always, among the few things that will always haunt me in my life, this is one of them. It was on NTV. Some guy stood up on TV and it was like, mwana omanyi abamalaya babadde ba 15 abagaga ne bajja ne basaasanya ssente kati shoti ya mutwalo ate ffe tetulina mutwalo tusaba gavumenti etuyambe. Why the fuck is the government in charge of your orgasm? By the time you're so disempowered that even something like that you feel like
you need a higher power exactly
to help you, you're fucked.
The real problem.
Like you're going to pray to all the gods, you're going to vote all like you're fucked.
I don't understand. Are you people saying that these people in opposition, for example, because you're saying this person should be angry, you've said anger gets shit done.
Yeah.
So if they arrest his candidate in quotes, he's entitled to go to the street and
don't be angry that they've arrested your candidate. Okay? Be angry because your grandmother who lived on that land, all right, for 30 generations, okay, was displaced by Chinese, all right, and all you're being told is one, securing your future, two, we are removing a dictator.
Probably sure that they compensate.
Yes, listen, and no one is addressing the fact of, listen, we were on this land for 30 years. Okay.
As Ugandans,
not 30 years, for 30 generations. Each generation is 25 years. So you can see how long that is. Alright? We need these Chinese gone, and I need the next president to come up and tell me those Chinese will go, I will get my land back, and the economy will not stop growing. But you will vote one guy, he will tell you we have removed the dictator, or two have secured your future, or three, blah, 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 and the Chinese will fucking stay.
Exactly. How many candidates are actually addressing that real problem? Not many, which is why I said this whole opposition thing also. This opposition to the regime is not satisfactory.
It's a state of Hindi hug.
Do you know what caused the Mama? Do you know what caused the Mama? Do you know what caused the Mama? Do you know one of the biggest driving factors of the Mama in Kenya? One of the largest driving factors of the Mama in Kenya was among the Chikuyu, because it happened in central Kenya, Chikuyu territory. Among the Chikuyu, a boy, once you reached, was it like 17, 16, you were supposed to set off, get your own land, start your own family, raise your own cows, get to bed, dig the garden, and life goes on. The Wazungu took the fertile Kenyan highlands and drove them into concentration camps. Alright? And this is how the opposition rises. Okay? The opposition was not in anything of mania, we have good dreams, whatever. No, it was simply me as a young man. Okay? My people have been on this land for X number of generations. I now have nowhere to put myself, my unborn children, and my young wife. What am I going to feed myself? Alright? And these men stood up, they took blood oaths and said, come and buy. All I want is land. And they were not fighting for grand gestures, mania, utopia. No, the man just wanted a place where he could put a house, bank his woman, and raise his kids. These are very simple things, but this actually is what gave Kenya independence. A guy felt like, Sirina nyumba, atengenda kulida ntia, chintu chinyize, let me go fight. But here you have the Slave Queen phenomenon, where, all rich men that have, stolen up all the wealth are banging like 3/4 of all the young girls. This sound like jokes, but this is an actual thing. So you have a 60, 70-year-old government worker who has looted the country dry for the last 20 plus years, is banging all your age mates, alright? And they're all settling and marrying with him, and somehow, in the general body psychic of the country, this has fucking become normal. In another time in Kenya, this was cause for a war. Like, the fuck? Because you now have to ask yourself, what sort of system is locking everyone else out and keeping these guys on top? Because this is the question. It's a very simple thing. You all want to, mate, to take the romance out of it so that this discussion does not become too involved in that sphere. But you all want to mate. Find a mate, have children, raise them, have a good life. These are all essentials. But if you cannot even afford your own insurance, your own healthcare, even before you go that far, if you cannot even afford to kukwana, you're still walking, paying your own car. Man, there is a larger social issue at hand. Solve it. And if you cannot get guys to fight on the basis of man, you have no one to bang, then there is no actual position you're running. Because if the small things cannot be addressed, you're not going to go address the much larger things.
Where is the opposition that is going to empower Ugandans to the point whereby because of course, yes, people have to come here from other places and trade.
Yeah.
But to the point where we can trade fairly with these people. You get it?
True.
Where is the opposition that is going to address the abuse of constitution that has happened over these years? Someone decides that they want to change a term limit. Someone says they want to change an age limit and they just push for it. What's that? Who gives the constitution power? The people?
Even Obote woke up and said, "No, I don't like this version of the
states.
constitution."
You get what I'm saying? We need opposition that's going to come and say, we are addressing these issues that have made you powerless in your own country. Yeah? Otherwise, if they cannot do it, Ugandans as themselves. I don't know how now, of course, now this is, of course, now me speculate. Because how is that, of course, going to happen? Such organization.
Maybe one day. There will be
They
a mass
need to
awakening.
realize that,
There will be a mass awakening. Maybe.
we are the ones giving this the constitution of Uganda is there because there are, let's say, 48 million Ugandans
Of course.
behind it, right?
It's
not because President Museveni, not because Chagulanyi has a thingy or potential of being a next one, not because they are ministries. No, it is because there are 48 million people giving that set of laws
Mental
power.
construct. Mental construct.
The majority of those people have to wake up and take back their power. They have to be like, okay, you know what? I don't know, maybe something as simple as saying as, you know what? If a good number of people, like 30 people say, we do not recognize these elections, I don't think that that election would be credible.
Of course not.
It is now organizing yourselves in a way to be able to get those 30 million names signed. But the thing is, the state which is supposed to be non-biased is now biased towards the people in the ruling one. This thing people call capitalism is actually just communism masquerading as capitalism, you know? Because they say it's capitalist and we are all going to trade in this market.
Right.
But the thing is, the people who have the resources to trade in the market, to create the companies that will control the flow of resources, they are the few. And those few are the same ones in the government.
It is,
You get it? So they end up dictating the flow of everything. And then they say it's a capital. Ow!
Someone,
As we are summarizing.
someone said it is what? It is capitalism for the profits, communism for the losses. When we lose, as Ugandans, we have faced a great loss.
But when
we win, ingenuity and geniuses.
Exactly.
So as we summarize, our time is almost up. Will you be voting?
Will I be voting? No.
Did you vote in the last election?
Yes, I did.
Will you be voting?
I will not be voting, and actually I want to point this out a lot because I've met many people, mostly my age, around my age group, who are not going to vote. I think it's a good move if in a way we can organize all those people and we form a kind of silent majority pressure group that says that for us these elections, okay, they are going on, but really what is this for? A pressure group that shows that we are also here. We are many and we don't recognize what's going on. It may not achieve the goal of stopping the election, but at least it will demonstrate that the people
There is this section
have power.
Yeah.
You understand?
We are summarizing.
The reason I'm not voting is, as I've told you before many times, I don't believe in democracy. Like in any way, form, shape, or size. Because democracy, at the end of the day, it is a tyranny by numbers. It's not a free man's thing.
Yeah.
It is, if I can convince and bullshit enough people to take my position, I'm not sure. But what if
You get.
what if I don't want? What if there are no options for me? What if I just want to do me? As long as I've not killed you, let me do me. And if you can't give me that under the name of, we have to be democratic, everyone voted, therefore we must think and align our actions, like, fuck you.
That is it for today, guys. See you next time.
Bye.